I spent over half my life building a dream, a beautiful house with a garden full of roses, only to have my own son, my flesh and blood, stand in the middle of my living room and say, "Mom, leave now." But he didn't know I wasn't the type to give up easily. That house represented decades of sacrifice. Every penny saved from teaching elementary school and working nights at the local bakery. Now, at 68, I finally held the keys to everything I'd ever wanted. Little did I know my greatest battle was just beginning. My name is Margaret Lawson, though everyone calls me Maggie. At 68 years old, I stood in front of the most beautiful house I'd ever seen, and it was mine. The realtor handed me the keys with a practiced smile, but she couldn't possibly understand what this moment meant to me. After 43 years of teaching third graders their multiplication tables and 15 years of weekend shifts at Rosie's Bakery on Main Street, I finally held the keys to my dream. The house sat on Maple Grove Lane in the quiet suburbs of Fairmont County, Colorado. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, classic Victorian architecture with original hardwood floors that creaked just enough to give it character. But what truly stole my breath was the wraparound porch and the half-acre backyard, perfect for the rose garden I'd been planning since Harold passed away 8 years ago. I ran my fingers along the white painted railings, imagining the climbing roses I'd plant come spring, pink knockouts along the fence, maybe some David Austins by the porch. Harold always said I had the greenest thumb in Colorado, though he'd teased that I loved those roses more than him. The memory brought a smile to my face as I unlocked the front door for the first time. The kitchen was what sealed the deal for me. Not modern by any stretch. The cabinets were original 1950s wood and the appliances needed updating, but it had space, real space. A kitchen island where I could roll out pie dough without bumping into walls, double ovens for Thanksgiving dinners, and a breakfast nook with windows facing east where morning light would stream in while I sipped my coffee. I'd spent decades in a cramped 2-bedroom rental on the other side of town, where the kitchen was so small I had to store my mixing bowls in the bedroom closet. Every month, I'd put away what I could, $50 here, $100 there when substitute teaching brought extra income. My colleagues thought I was crazy, living so frugally on a teacher's pension. "Maggie, treat yourself," they'd say when I'd pack the same turkey sandwich for lunch every day, but I had bigger dreams than restaurant meals or new clothes. The living room echoed as I walked through it, my sensible shoes clicking against the hardwood, empty now, but I could already see it filled with life, my reading chair by the fireplace, Harold's old bookshelf against the far wall, maybe a piano in the corner if I could find a good deal at an estate sale. The afternoon sun slanted through the tall windows, casting golden rectangles across the floor. My cell phone buzzed, interrupting my reverie. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. My only child, 40 years old and still finding himself, as he liked to say. I debated letting it go to voicemail but answered on the 4th ring. "Hi, honey," I said, unable to keep the joy from my voice. "Mom, you sound different. Everything okay?" "Everything's wonderful. I'm standing in my new house." The pause on the other end stretched just a beat too long. "You actually bought it? The one on Maple Grove?" "Just got the keys." I couldn't help but beam, even though he couldn't see me. That's great, Mom, really great. How many bedrooms did you say it had?" 3, plus a finished basement." "Wow, that's a lot of space for one person." Another pause. "What did something like that run you, if you don't mind me asking?" I felt a familiar twinge in my chest, the same feeling I'd get when Daniel only called around his birthday or Christmas. "Oh, you know the market these days, but I'd been saving for so long, and with the life insurance from your father—" Right, smart thinking." His voice had taken on that calculating tone I recognized from when he was a teenager trying to figure out how much money he could ask for. "Brittany will be thrilled to hear about it. She's always saying we should visit more." Brittany, his wife of 5 years, a woman who looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her designer shoes. The last time they'd visited, 2 Christmases ago, she'd spent the entire time photographing my quaint rental for her Instagram, #HumbleHomes. "You're both always welcome," I said, though something in my stomach tightened. "Actually, Mom, that's perfect timing. We've been meaning to talk to you about something. But hey, enjoy your big day. We'll call you later this week, okay? Love you." He hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone, that uneasy feeling growing stronger. In 40 years, Daniel had never been excited about visiting me, and Brittany showing interest in my life. That was a first. But I pushed the worry aside. This was my day, my triumph. I walked out to the backyard where the previous owners had left nothing but grass and a lonely oak tree. By next summer, this would be transformed. Rose bushes, a vegetable garden, maybe even a small greenhouse if I could manage it. I'd host garden parties for the church ladies, bake pies with apples from my own trees, and finally live the life I'd scrimped and saved for. The American dream, they called it own your own home, build something lasting. As I stood in my empty backyard, I believed in that dream with every fiber of my being. I'd earn this through honest work and sacrifice. Nothing and no one could take it away from me. How wrong I was. The signs had been there all along. If I'd been willing to see them. Daniel had always been a difficult child, not in the violent or rebellious way, but in how he could never quite find his footing. Harold used to say our boy was just a late bloomer, that he'd figure things out eventually. But here we were, 22 years after he dropped out of Colorado State, and he was still figuring things out. I'd paid for his college education by taking on extra tutoring jobs, summer school sessions, anything to avoid student loans. When he quit after sophomore year to pursue opportunities in entrepreneurship, I bit my tongue and supported him. The entrepreneurship turned out to be a series of failed ventures, a food truck that never got off the ground, an app development company that produced no apps, a cryptocurrency investment scheme that I didn't even pretend to understand. Through it all, I kept sending checks. $500 here for rent when he was between jobs, $1,000 there for car repairs, $2,000 for the engagement ring when he proposed to Brittany. Harold's life insurance had given me a cushion, but I guarded it carefully, knowing it was my only chance at the house I dreamed of. The calls from Daniel always followed a pattern. First came the casual check-in, asking about my health, the weather, anything but money. Then the story, usually elaborate, about why things were tough right now. Finally, the ask, presented as if the idea had just occurred to him. I'd transfer the money. He promised to pay me back when things turned around, and then weeks of silence would follow. But after I bought the house, the pattern changed. Suddenly, Daniel called every few days. He wanted to know about property taxes, maintenance costs, whether I'd considered the burden of yard work at my age. Brittany even got on the phone once, gushing about interior design ideas and asking what kind of renovations I planned. "Mom, Brittany has a real eye for these things," Daniel said during one call. "She's been doing some freelance staging work, really talented. She could help you maximize the home's value." "I'm not planning to sell. Honey, I just bought it." "Of course not, but it's always smart to think about equity. Property is an investment, after all." The first time they visited the house was 3 weeks after I'd moved in. I'd spent days preparing, cooking Daniel's favorite pot roast, baking fresh bread, arranging flowers from the garden center in every room. When their BMW pulled into my driveway, my heart actually fluttered with hope. Maybe the house would bring us closer together. Brittany stepped out first, her heels clicking on my new driveway, oversized sunglasses hiding half her face despite the overcast sky. She surveyed the house like a general planning an invasion, her lips pursed in what might have been approval or disgust. With Brittany, I could never tell. "It's very vintage," she finally said, which in Brittany speak meant old and outdated. Daniel bounded up the porch steps and gave me a quick hug, his eyes already scanning the interior through the open door. "Mom, this is incredible. You weren't kidding about the space." They toured the house with the thoroughness of prospective buyers, not family visitors. Brittany took photos of every room, murmuring about potential and bones. Daniel peppered me with questions about the furnace. the roof's age. When the windows had last been replaced, they spent an unusual amount of time in the basement, whispering to each other while I pretended not to notice from the kitchen. Over dinner, the conversation felt like an interrogation disguised as small talk. "So, you're living here all alone?" Brittany asked, cutting her pot roast into tiny, precise pieces. "Isn't that a bit much for one person?" "I manage just fine. The church ladies help with anything I can't handle." "But what about when you can't manage?" Daniel leaned forward, his face arranging itself into an expression of concern I'd seen him practice in the mirror as a teenager. "We worry about you. Mom, all alone in this big house. What if you fall? What if there's a break-in?" "The neighborhood is very safe, and I'm not that old. Daniel, 68 isn't 90. Brittany and Daniel exchanged one of their looks, the kind married couples perfect over years of silent communication. I pretended to be busy serving dessert, but my hands shook slightly as I cut the apple pie. "We're just thinking about your future," Brittany said, her voice taking on a syrupy sweetness that made my teeth ache. "Daniel and I have been discussing it, and we want to be more involved in your life. Family should stick together." In 40 years, Daniel had never expressed interest in being involved in my life unless his bank account was running low. And Brittany, she'd spent every previous visit checking her phone and making excuses to leave early. Now suddenly they were concerned about family togetherness? "That's sweet, dear," I said carefully. "You're always welcome to visit." "Actually," Daniel said, pushing his pie around his plate, "we were thinking about something more permanent." The words hung in the air like smoke from a snuffed candle. I set down my fork and waited. "You see, Mom, Brittany and I have hit a rough patch. Financially speaking, temporary, of course, but our landlord sold our building, and with the market the way it is." There it was, the ask. But this time, it wasn't for money. "We were hoping we could stay with you for a few weeks," Brittany finished for him. "Just until we get back on our feet. Family helping family." I looked at my son, searching his face for any sign of the little boy who used to help me plant marigolds in our tiny Reynolds window boxes. All I saw was calculation. "Of course," I heard myself say, "family helps family." They moved in the following Tuesday, arriving with enough boxes and suitcases to outfit a small army. As I watched them carry load after load into my dream house, that uneasy feeling from the first phone call blossomed into full-blown dread. But I pushed it down, told myself I was being paranoid. They were family, my only family. What could go wrong? Just a few weeks, Daniel had promised as he hauled in the third suitcase. By my count, they'd brought enough belongings to last through winter. I stood in my doorway, watching Brittany direct the placement of boxes like a conductor orchestrating a symphony of chaos. "Careful with that one," she snapped at Daniel. "My design portfolios are in there." Design portfolios? For someone who'd been doing freelance staging work, she seemed to have accumulated quite the collection. I bit back the observation that successful designers could probably afford their own housing. Before they arrived, I'd spent the morning establishing some ground rules, writing them out on my nicest stationery. Nothing unreasonable, just basic courtesies about keeping common areas tidy, asking before having guests over, and contributing to utilities once they found work. I'd left the list on the guest bedroom dresser, next to a vase of fresh daisies from my fledgling garden. "Mom, the guest room is too small for both of us," Daniel announced, appearing in the hallway. "We'll take the master. You don't mind, do you? Your knees have been bothering you anyway. All those stairs can't be good for them." My knees were fine. I'd mentioned once, months ago, that they ached after a long day of gardening. Trust Daniel to file that away for future use. "The master bedroom is mine," I said firmly. "The guest room should be perfectly adequate for a few weeks." That look passed between them again. Brittany's mouth tightened into a line thinner than her penciled eyebrows. "Of course," she said, her tone suggesting anything but agreement. "We're grateful for any space." The first few days passed in relative peace. They kept to themselves mostly, though I noticed things, small things. My coffee mug moved from its usual spot by the coffee maker. The living room furniture subtly rearranged. My grandmother's Afghan, which had always draped over the back of the sofa, folded and tucked away in the hall closet. It clashed with the room's potential. Brittany explained when I retrieved it, "I'm just trying to help you see what this space could be." By the end of the first week, the invasions became less subtle. I came home from my volunteer shift at the library to find my dining room transformed into Brittany's temporary office. My oak table, the one Harold and I had saved for 3 years to buy, was covered in fabric swatches, paint samples, and architectural magazines. "I have clients to service," she said without looking up from her laptop. "You don't use this room anyway." "I use it every Sunday when the church ladies come for lunch." "Well, maybe it's time to start hosting somewhere else. This house is too much maintenance for entertaining." The words stung, but not as much as finding Daniel in my bedroom that evening, photographing the contents of my jewelry box. "What are you doing?" He startled, nearly dropping his phone. "Mom, I was just—" "Brittany wanted to help you organize. She says you could benefit from some decluttering." "Get out of my room, Daniel." "Come on, don't be like that, and we're trying to help. Some of this stuff might be valuable. You should know what you have. Maybe get it appraised." I thought of my mother's pearl necklace, Harold's class ring, the small diamond earrings I'd bought myself when I retired. Valuable? Perhaps. For sale? Never. "Out. Now." He left, but the damage was done. That night, I moved my jewelry box to the locked filing cabinet in my closet, along with my important papers. The next morning, I found the cabinet's lock had been tampered with. Scratches around the keyhole, subtle but unmistakable. The few weeks stretched into a month. Their presence expanded like spilled water, seeping into every corner of my life. Brittany hosted what she called networking events in my living room, loud affairs that lasted until well past midnight. Daniel started parking his BMW in the garage, relegating my Honda to the driveway. They ate my food, used my utilities, and contributed nothing but chaos and criticism. "Your rose garden is wasting valuable real estate," Brittany announced one morning, gesturing at my carefully tended beds with her coffee mug, my favorite mug, the one with painted violets that Harold had given me. "You could put in a deck, maybe a hot tub. Much better for property values." I like my roses. Likes don't pay bills. "Margaret?" She'd started calling me Margaret instead of Mom or even Maggie, as if we were business associates rather than family. "You need to think strategically about this asset." Asset? My home had become an asset in her mind, a commodity to be optimized and eventually liquidated. The rules I'd so carefully written lay crumpled in their wastebasket, which I discovered when I entered their room to collect laundry. The disrespect shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Along with the discarded rules, I found something else. Printouts from real estate websites, all showing recent sales in my neighborhood, properties comparable to mine, with sale prices highlighted in yellow. That evening, I set fresh boundaries. They gathered in the living room, my living room, with the air of indulgent parents humoring a difficult child. "I need you to start looking for your own place," I said. "I've given you 5 weeks to get on your feet. That should be enough." Daniel's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine. Surprise, hurt, anger, finally settling on wounded disappointment. He'd perfected that expression in high school, usually right before asking for money. "Mom, I can't believe you're kicking us out. We're family." "I'm not kicking you out. I'm asking you to honor our original agreement. A few weeks. You said—" "The rental market is brutal right now," Brittany interjected. "Everything requires first, last, and security. That's thousands of dollars we don't have because we've been helping you maintain this place." Helping? They hadn't lifted a finger except to rearrange my belongings and eat my food, but I recognized the manipulation, the way they were already rewriting history to cast themselves as victims. 2 more weeks, and I said, "Then you need to go." The look that passed between them this time was different, darker, calculating, for the first time since they'd arrived. I felt afraid in my own home. That night, I called my friend Evelyn and asked if I could store some valuables at her house, just temporarily, just in case. I should have stored myself there, too. The morning after, I'd given them notice. I woke at 6:30 to find my house already buzzing with activity. Through my bedroom door, I could hear Brittany's voice, bright and professional, utterly different from the condescending tone she usually used with me. Yes, it's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, original hardwood throughout. Victorian details beautifully preserved. The owner is very motivated. My blood turned to ice water. I threw on my robe and hurried downstairs to find Brittany in my kitchen, my phone pressed to her ear, gesturing animatedly at my breakfast nook. "What do you think you're doing?" She held up a manicured finger, continuing her conversation. "Absolutely. We can arrange a viewing this afternoon. 2:00 works perfectly." "Hang up that phone now!" She ended the call with a promise to send photos within the hour, then turned to me with a smile that would have looked genuine to anyone who didn't know her. "Margaret, wonderful! I was just fielding some interest in the property. The market is absolutely on fire right now. You could make a killing." "I'm not selling my house." "Of course you're not selling." Daniel appeared from the living room, carrying a measuring tape. "But Mom, you have to understand your position here. This place is too big for you. The maintenance alone will eat through your savings." "My savings are none of your concern." "They are when you're being irresponsible." His voice hardened, the mask of the concerned son slipping. "Do you know what this house is worth? What you could do with that money? You could get a nice little condo, something manageable, and have plenty left over." "Left over for what exactly?" They exchanged another look. Brittany took over, her voice honeyed with false concern. "For your care, Margaret, for ensuring you're looked after properly as you age. Daniel and I want to help manage that transition." Manage, there was that word again, like I was a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be overcome. "Get out," I said quietly. "Pack your things and get out of my house." "Mom." "Today." Daniel's face flushed red. "You can't just throw us out. We have rights. We've established residency." "Then I'll call the police and have you removed." "And tell them what?" Brittany's smile turned sharp. "That your son and daughter-in-law have been staying with you? Helping around the house? Making sure you're safe? I'm sure they'll rush right over." The doorbell rang before I could respond, through the frosted glass. I could see 2 figures, a man in a suit and a woman holding a folder. "That'll be the Johnsons," Brittany said brightly. "They're very interested in the property. Shall I let them in?" "Don't you dare!" But she was already moving toward the door, Daniel stepping smoothly to block my path, not aggressively, not obviously, just positioning his body so I'd have to push past him to stop her. "Mom, be reasonable. Just hear what they have to offer. No obligation." The couple entered my home like they owned it already, their eyes cataloging every detail. Brittany launched into a tour guide routine, pointing out original features and areas for improvement. I followed helplessly, my protest drowned out by her practiced patter. "As you can see, the bones are excellent," she was saying as she led them into my living room. "With some updating, this could be a real showplace." "We're not interested in updates," the woman said, making notes in her folder. "We're developers. The real value is in the land. This lot could easily accommodate 2 units, maybe 3 if we go vertical." My beautiful house, my garden, they wanted to tear it all down. "There's been a misunderstanding," I said firmly. "This house is not for sale." The man looked between me and Brittany, confusion creasing his features. But the listing said, "There is no listing." My voice cracked with desperation. "This is my home. These people are just... they're..." "Having some difficulty accepting reality," Daniel finished smoothly. "Our mother is struggling with the transition. I'm sure you understand. Perhaps we could continue this discussion privately." The couple had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Maybe we should come back another time," the woman suggested. "No need," I said. "There won't be another time. This house is not for sale." After they left, the gloves came off completely. Daniel paced the living room like a caged animal while Brittany sat on my sofa, filing her nails with vicious precision. "Do you have any idea what you just cost us?" "Oh," Daniel spat. "They were prepared to make an offer. Cash offer, Mom. Do you know how rare that is?" "I don't care if they were offering gold bars. It's my house." "Your house?" He laughed, ugly and bitter. "You think you earned this? Scrimping and saving your little teacher's salary? Dad's life insurance bought this place. His death bought it. And what are you doing with it? Growing roses and hosting church ladies?" The cruelty of it took my breath away. Harold's death had nearly broken me. That Daniel would weaponize that grief, reduce it to a financial transaction. "Your father would be ashamed of you," I whispered. "Yeah, well, he's not here, is he? Just you, sitting on a gold mine while your only son struggles." "Struggles? You've been struggling your entire adult life. Daniel, by choice, by laziness, by always looking for the easy way out." "The easy way?" Brittany stood, her composure finally cracking. "Do you know what your son owes? What we owe? This isn't about easy. This is about survival." "Then get jobs. Work, like everyone else." "With what? Who's going to hire him with his record?" "Record." I looked at Daniel, who suddenly found the floor fascinating. "What record?" "It's nothing," he mumbled. "A misunderstanding. Some business deals that went sideways." "Fraud charges," Brittany clarified, her voice hard. "Dropped, but still on record, and the people he owes don't care about the legal system. They have their own ways of collecting." The room spun slightly. My son, my little boy who used to bring me dandelions and call them flowers, was in trouble with criminals? "How much?" I heard myself ask. $75,000, Daniel said quietly, "give or take." $75,000, more than a year of my teaching salary, more than I had in savings even after selling everything. "I can't help you." I said, "Even if I sold the house, which I won't, I couldn't give you that kind of money." "You could if you weren't so selfish," Brittany snapped. "This house is worth 3 times that. But no, you'd rather play gardener while your son's life is in danger." "Then we'll go to the police. There are programs, protection." Daniel laughed again, that same bitter sound. "These aren't the kind of people you go to the police about. Mom, these are the kind of people who make examples out of welchers, examples that end up in the river." I sank into my chair, the weight of it all crushing down. But even as fear for my son gnawed at my insides, a voice whispered in the back of my mind, "Asterisk. Was any of this true? Or just another manipulation, another elaborate story to get what they wanted?" Looking at their faces, Daniel's calculated desperation, Brittany's cold fury, I realized it didn't matter, true or false. They'd decided my house was the solution to their problems. And they weren't going to take no for an answer. That evening, I locked myself in my bedroom and called Evelyn. My hands shook as I dialed, and I had to try twice before getting the number right. "Maggie, you sound terrible. What's wrong?" "Can you come over tomorrow, early? I need a witness for something." "Of course. But why do you need a witness?" I glanced at my bedroom door, lowering my voice. "I'm going to ask Daniel and Brittany to sign a rental agreement. If they claim they're tenants, then they can start paying rent or get out." "Smart. I'll be there at 8. I spent the night drafting the agreement on my old computer, printing it out on the last of Harold's legal paper, $500 a month, utilities included, more than fair for a guest room in Fairmont County. If they truly needed time to get back on their feet, they could prove it by contributing. The next morning, Evelyn arrived with her no-nonsense attitude and a thermos of strong coffee, a retired paralegal. She'd helped me with Harold's estate and knew how to make documents stick. "Where are they?" she asked, looking around my empty kitchen. "Still in bed, they rarely emerge before 10. At their age? Shameful." She reviewed my rental agreement, made a few notes. "This is good, but add a clause about property damage and make it month to month so you can terminate with 30 days' notice." We were revising the document when Daniel appeared, hair disheveled, yesterday's clothes wrinkled. He stopped short at seeing Evelyn. Mrs. Carter, what brings you here? Supporting my friend, which is more than I can say for some people. His jaw tightened. Mom, we need to talk, privately. Anything you need to say can be said in front of Evelyn. In fact, I'm glad you're up. I have something for you to sign. I slid the rental agreement across the kitchen table. He didn't even look at it. You're joking. Not at all. You claim you've established residency. Fine. Residents pay rent. To their own mother? To their landlord, which is what I am if you're claiming tenant rights. Brittany appeared in the doorway, perfectly put together despite the early hour. Her eyes narrowed as she took in the scene. Evelyn's stern presence, the papers on the table, my determined expression. What's this about? Your mother-in-law wants to charge us rent, Daniel said. Can you believe it? Brittany picked up the agreement, scanning it quickly. This is ridiculous. We're family. Family doesn't threaten each other with legal technicalities, I countered. Family doesn't bring strangers into my home to assess its value. Family doesn't go through my personal belongings looking for things to sell. I found the photos on Daniel's phone when he left it on the counter. Pictures of my jewelry, my antiques, even the silver in the dining room hutch, all with notes about estimated values. Daniel had the decency to look ashamed. Brittany just looked annoyed at getting caught. Sign the agreement and start paying rent or leave today. I said, those are your options. There's a third option, Brittany said coolly. We could make your life very difficult, Margaret. A confused elderly woman, living alone in a house too big for her, making erratic decisions. Your son, concerned for your welfare, trying to help but being rebuffed at every turn. It's a sad story, the kind that sometimes requires intervention. Are you threatening me? I'm laying out facts. Courts tend to side with concerned family members, especially when there's evidence of declining capacity. What evidence see? Evelyn demanded, Maggie's sharp as a tack. Is she? She's been giving away valuable items to strangers. I have witnesses who saw her hand over family heirlooms to that church thrift shop. She's paranoid, claiming we're stealing from her. She's isolated herself from her only family. Classic signs of dementia. My blood ran cold. I had donated some items to the church. Old clothes, duplicate kitchen gadgets, nothing valuable. But twisted the right way, it could sound like confusion. You wouldn't dare, I breathed. Wouldn't we? Daniel finally spoke up, his voice flat. Mom, we're desperate. You have no idea what kind of people I owe money to. They don't send polite letters. They send visitors, the kind who break things, sometimes bones. Then we'll go to the police. Whoa, with what? These aren't idiots. There's no paper trail, no evidence. Just me owing the wrong people money I don't have. He slumped into a chair, suddenly looking far older than 40. They came to the apartment last week. That's the real reason we're here. They said they'd give me 1 month to come up with the money, or else. Or else what? Do you really want to know? I looked at my son, really looked at him. Beneath the manipulation and entitlement, I saw genuine fear, but I also saw calculation. How much was truth? How much was performance? I'll give you 10,000, I said finally. That's all I can spare without touching the house. It's enough to get you somewhere safe, maybe start over in another state. 10,000? Brittany laughed. That's insulting. This house is worth... I don't care what it's worth. It's not for sale. Then your son's blood is on your hands, she snapped. When they come for him, and they will, remember that you chose a pile of bricks over your own child. No, Evelyn interjected firmly. You don't get to put this on Maggie. Your husband's gambling debts are not her responsibility. Neither are his bad choices. Gambling? I turned to Daniel. You said business deals. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Another lie unraveling. Sports betting, he admitted quietly. It started small. I had a system, but the system had flaws, and I kept doubling down trying to win it back. Classic Daniel, always a system, always a shortcut, never the hard work of building something real. The 10,000 stands. I said, take it or leave it. We'll take the house. Brittany countered. "One way or another, you can sell it to us now, willingly, and walk away with enough to buy a nice condo, or we can do this the hard way. Your choice, Margaret." "Get out," I said, "both of you, now." "We're not going anywhere," Daniel said, but there was desperation creeping into his voice. "This is our only option, Mom. Don't you get it? They'll kill me." Maybe they would. Maybe this was all true, and my son had finally hit the absolute bottom of his lifetime of bad choices. But looking at him, at Brittany with her calculating eyes and manicured nails, I realized something. Even if the danger was real, they'd already chosen my house over every other solution. They hadn't looked for jobs, hadn't sought help from Brittany's family, hadn't even tried to negotiate with these mysterious creditors. They'd come straight for me, straight for my dream. I said, "Get out. You have 1 hour to pack what you brought. Anything you leave behind goes to the curb. You'll regret this." Brittany promised, "When you're alone in this house, when Daniel's gone and you have no one, remember, you chose this." "No," I said, standing taller than I had in weeks. "You chose this. Every step of the way, you chose this." They left, but not quietly. Shouting, threats, Daniel's fist through the hallway wall, a final bit of damage to remember him by. Evelyn stayed with me through it all, her presence a shield against their rage. When their car finally pulled away, I changed the locks, all of them, and for the first time in over a month, I slept peacefully in my own home. But I should have known they wouldn't give up that easily. 3 days of peace. That's all I got before the world came crashing down again. I was in the garden, finally tending to my roses without looking over my shoulder, when Evelyn's car screeched into my driveway. "Maggie!" She was out of the car before it fully stopped, waving a manila envelope. "You need to see this right now." Her face was pale, her usually perfect hair windblown. I'd never seen Evelyn Carter rattled, not even when her husband had his heart attack 5 years ago. "What's wrong?" "Inside, we need to talk inside." In my kitchen, she spread papers across the table with shaking hands. "My nephew works at First National Bank. He called me this morning, said something strange was happening with your accounts. Maggie, when's the last time you checked your statements?" I don't know. With everything going on, someone's been accessing your information. Look." She pointed to a credit report printout. 3 credit cards opened in your name last month, all maxed out. Cash advances totaling $30,000. The room tilted. I gripped the table edge. "That's impossible. I haven't opened any credit cards." "And this," another paper, "a home equity line of credit application, submitted 2 days ago for $100,000 against your house. But I never—" "Of course you didn't. But look at the contact information. The phone number isn't yours. The email address, magiel1956@gmail.com. Is that yours?" I shook my head. My email was through the school district. Had been for years. "They're stealing your identity. Honey, trying to leverage your house without actually selling it." I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. How I've been so careful. Daniel had access to everything while he lived here. Your mail, your personal information. Did he ever use your computer? I thought of all the times I'd found him in my small office, claiming to be job hunting. The morning I'd caught him photographing my jewelry. Had he been photographing documents too? "We need to call the police," Evelyn said, "and the bank. And—" "Wait." I held up a hand, trying to think through the panic. If they're this desperate, if they've already committed fraud, what else might they do? As if in answer, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but Evelyn nodded encouragingly. "Hello? Mrs. Lawson?" A man's voice. Professional but cold. "This is Michael Torino. I believe your son might have mentioned me." My blood turned to ice. "I don't know any Michael Torino." "No? Well, I know quite a bit about you. Beautiful house on Maple Grove Lane. Rose garden coming along nicely. You were out there this morning around 9:15, wearing that blue gardening hat. I looked out my window reflexively, scanning the street, empty. What do you want? Simple. Your son owes me $75,000. He assured me the debt would be settled once certain property transactions were completed. Imagine my disappointment when I learned those transactions hit a snag. My son's debts are not my responsibility. Legally? No. But you see, Mrs. Lawson, I'm not a legal kind of guy. I'm a results kind of guy. And right now, I'm not seeing results. Are you threatening me? Threatening? No. I'm explaining reality. Your son has something that belongs to me. My money. He says that money is tied up in your house. So by the transitive property, your house has something that belongs to me. Are you following? I'm calling the police. Are you? And tell them what? That you received a phone call from someone discussing a debt. Good luck with that. He paused. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to reconsider your stubbornness about that house. You're going to help your son access the equity he needs, or things are going to become very uncomfortable for everyone involved. Don't call here again. I won't need to. We'll be in touch through other channels. Oh, and Mrs. Lawson, that's a beautiful pearl necklace you keep in your jewelry box. Your mother's, wasn't it? Would be a shame if something happened to it. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my hand trembling. He'd been in my house, in my bedroom. The violated feeling washed over me in waves. We're calling the police now, Evelyn said firmly. No arguments. But even as she dialed, I knew it wouldn't be enough. The man was right. What evidence did I have? A phone call from an unknown number. Credit fraud that could take months to untangle. My son's word against mine about who authorized what. The police took a report, promised to investigate, suggested I consider a restraining order against Daniel and Brittany. But restraining orders were just paper. Paper wouldn't stop desperate people or the criminals they owed money to. That night, I didn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every car passing on the street sent my heart racing. I double-checked every lock, moved a chair against my bedroom door, kept my phone and car keys within reach. Around 3 a.m, I heard it, the soft scrape of metal on metal. Someone was at the back door. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911 with shaking fingers. 911, what's your emergency? Someone's breaking into my house, and I whispered. 1247 Maple Grove Lane. Please hurry. We're dispatching officers now. Ma'am, are you in a safe location? I'm in my bedroom. I've barricaded the door. Good, stay there. Stay on the line. The scraping stopped. Silence stretched out, more terrifying than noise. Then, the unmistakable sound of glass breaking. The kitchen window. They're inside. I breathed into the phone. Officers are 3 minutes out. Stay calm. Stay quiet. Footsteps in my kitchen. Slow, deliberate. Not trying to be quiet anymore. Cabinet doors opening. Drawers sliding. They were searching for something. Mom? Daniel's voice drifted up the stairs. Mom, I know you're awake. We need to talk. My own son, breaking into my house in the dead of night. The betrayal cut deeper than any threat from strangers. The police are coming. I called out, my voice stronger than I felt. No, they're not. Brittany this time. We've been watching. You're all alone in there, just like always. Had they been watching my house, waiting for their moment? The idea made my skin crawl. Here's what's going to happen, Daniel called. You're going to come downstairs. We're going to have a conversation about reality, about survival, about family loyalty. You don't know what loyalty means, I shot back. Maybe not, but I know what desperation means, and desperate people do desperate things. Something crashed downstairs. My grandmother's china cabinet, from the sound of it. Pieces of my life being destroyed, one family heirloom at a time. Then, blessed sirens, getting closer. The footsteps downstairs turned frantic. This isn't over, Daniel called, one way or another. Mom, one way or another. The back door slammed. By the time I made it to my window, they were gone, melting into the darkness like the shadows they'd become. The police found my kitchen ransacked, the window broken, muddy footprints across my clean floor. They found something else, too. My box of important documents, pulled from its hiding place and rifled through. Birth certificates, social security cards, the deed to my house, all there, but violated, touched by hands that wished me harm. "You can't stay here," the officer said. "Not until we catch them. Is there somewhere you can go?" But this was my home, my dream, the place I'd worked my whole life to have. I wasn't going to let them drive me out. "I'm staying," I said, "but things are going to change." They'd shown me who they really were. Now it was time to show them who I was. The grandmother who baked cookies and grew roses was gone. In her place stood someone harder, someone who'd defend what was hers. They wanted a war? They were about to get one. The next morning, I sat in the office of Patricia Morales, the toughest lawyer in Fairmont County. Evelyn had made the call at 7 a.m. sharp, pulling strings from her paralegal days. Patricia didn't usually take appointments on such short notice, but she made exceptions for certain cases. Identity theft, breaking and entering, harassment, extortion. Patricia listed, reviewing my documents. "Your son has given us plenty to work with, but I need to be straight with you. Mrs. Lawson, family cases are messy. Juries sympathize with desperate adult children, especially sons." He broke into my house. Allegedly. Did security cameras catch him? I don't have security cameras. We'll fix that today. I'm also filing an emergency order of protection and pushing for immediate eviction proceedings based on the break-in. The identity theft is federal. That's serious prison time if convicted. Prison. The word stuck in my throat. Despite everything, he was still my baby boy somewhere deep inside. Patricia's eyes softened slightly. "I know this is hard, but your son crossed lines that can't be uncrossed. This isn't about family squabbles anymore. This is about criminal behavior." She was right. I signed papers, authorized charges, did what I had to do. By noon, a security company was installing cameras around my property. By 2 p.m., a process server was looking for Daniel and Brittany. Evelyn stayed with me, fielding calls and making sandwiches neither of us ate. Around 4 p.m., my phone buzzed. Daniel. "Don't answer," Evelyn warned. But I had to. "What do you want?" "You called a lawyer? Really? Mom, you're going to send your own son to prison? You broke into my house. You stole my identity. I tried to survive. Do you understand what they'll do to me if I don't pay? These aren't bank collectors. Mom, these are people who break kneecaps for warning shots." "Then you should have thought of that before gambling money you didn't have." Easy for you to say from your throne in that house. You have no idea what real desperation looks like. I worked 43 years for this house, 43 years of other people's children. Weekend shifts, coupons, and sacrifice. Don't talk to me about desperation. Yeah, well, your 43 years are about to mean nothing. You think a restraining order will stop Torino's people? You think cameras will matter to men who've made people disappear? Is that a threat? It's reality. But here's the thing. Mom, I can make this all go away. One phone call. Tell them you're reconsidering, that we can work out a deal. They'll back off. We all walk away clean. Except without my house? You'll have your life. Isn't that worth more than wood and nails? I thought about his words. The old Maggie would have caved, would have prioritized her son's safety over everything else. But that Maggie had been enabling Daniel's bad choices for 40 years, that Maggie had created this monster. No deal. Mom, your choices, your consequences. Don't contact me again. I hung up and blocked his number. Then I threw up in my kitchen sink, my body rejecting the stress of turning my back on my only child. That evening, as I was checking the new camera feeds on my phone, movement caught my eye. A dark sedan, parked 3 houses down. It had been there for hours. I called Patricia. What do I do? No, document everything. Time, license plate, description of occupants if visible. But don't engage. Let them watch. You're not doing anything wrong. Easy for her to say. She didn't have strangers cataloging her life, learning her patterns, but I did what she said. Took photos, made notes, acted normal even as my skin crawled. The next day brought a small victory. Patricia called with good news. The judge had granted the emergency protection order and fast-tracked the eviction proceedings. Daniel and Brittany have been served. They're officially barred from your property and from contacting you. Violation means immediate arrest. What about the criminal charges? The DA's office is building the case. The identity theft is solid. We have clear evidence of fraudulent accounts opened using your information. The breaking and entering depends on physical evidence, but your testimony plus the damage should be enough. Relief washed through me. Legal protection, finally. But my relief was short-lived. That afternoon, while I was at the grocery store, my phone exploded with notifications from my security system. Motion detected, all cameras. I abandoned my cart and raced home to find my front yard destroyed. Every rose bush, every carefully tended plant, ripped from the ground, scattered across the lawn, months of work, decades of dreams, shredded in minutes. The cameras had caught it all. 3 men in masks, working methodically, not random vandalism, targeted destruction. They'd known exactly what would hurt most. I stood in my ruined garden, crushing rose petals beneath my feet, and something inside me hardened into diamond. They thought they could break me by destroying beauty. They didn't understand that beauty could be replanted, but the strength they'd awakened in me, that was permanent. I called Patricia, then the police, then I did something else. Fairmont Gazette, I'd like to speak to a reporter. I have a story about local criminals targeting senior citizens. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd play smart. Public pressure, media attention. Let them operate in shadows when spotlights were shining. The reporter arrived within an hour, photographer in tow. I stood in my destroyed garden, the perfect image of a victimized grandmother, and told my story. My son's gambling debts, the criminals who thought they could intimidate an old woman, the break-in, the vandalism. They think because I'm elderly, because I'm alone, that I'm weak, I said, looking directly into the camera. They're wrong. This is my home. I worked my entire life for it, and I'm not going anywhere. The story ran the next morning. Front page. Local teacher stands up to extortion. My phone rang off the hook. Neighbors offering support. Church friends organizing patrols. Even strangers expressing outrage. But the best call came from Patricia. Maggie, you're not going to believe this. The FBI wants to talk to you. The FBI? Turns out, mister, Torino has been on their radar for a while. Your story might be the break they needed. They want to know everything about his contact with you, about Daniel's involvement. This is bigger than just your house now. I thought about Daniel, how he'd thrown his lot in with these people, how he'd chosen them over me. The sting had faded, replaced by cold resolve. I'll tell them everything. Good, because I have more news. The forensic accountant found something interesting in those fraudulent accounts. The money didn't just disappear, it was transferred to accounts connected to Brittany's design business. She's been washing gambling money through fake invoices. Money laundering. My daughter-in-law wasn't just a manipulative social climber, she was a criminal. And she'd dragged my son down with her. Or maybe he'd dragged her. At this point, it didn't matter. What mattered was that I'd found my spine, and I was going to use it. Set up the meeting, I told Patricia. I'm ready to fight. They'd wanted my house, but they'd awakened something far more dangerous. A grandmother with nothing left to lose and everything to protect. The war was far from over, but for the first time since this nightmare began, I was winning. The FBI meeting took place in a nondescript office building downtown. Agent Sarah Martinez and her partner listened intently as I laid out everything. Every threat, every manipulation, every crime. I'd brought receipts, phone records, the security footage. Patricia sat beside me, occasionally clarifying legal points. Mrs. Lawson, your son appears to be in deeper than just owing money. Agent Martinez said, we believe he's been helping Torino's organization with financial transfers. Your daughter-in-law's business is a front. The final piece clicked into place. They hadn't just wanted my house for the money, they'd needed it for the crime, a legitimate asset to wash dirty money through. "We'd like your cooperation in bringing them all down," the agent continued, "including your son." "You have it," I said without hesitation. The next weeks moved quickly. The FBI worked with local police to coordinate arrests. I wore a wire for one final phone call with Daniel, getting him to admit to the break-in, the identity theft, his connection to Torino. His voice on the recording sounded desperate. Alien. Not the boy I'd raised, but the criminal he'd become. The arrests happened on a Tuesday morning at 6:45. I watched from my window as FBI agents surrounded the motel where Daniel and Brittany had been hiding. The same morning, they raided Torino's operations across 3 states. Patricia called me at 8. "It's done. They're all in custody. Daniel's being charged with identity theft, breaking and entering, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and money laundering. Brittany faces additional charges for running the fake business, Torino. Well, he won't be threatening grandmothers for a very long time." I sat in my kitchen, in the house I'd fought so hard to keep, and waited to feel something. Joy? Sadness? Relief? Instead, I felt empty. Necessary empty. Like a garden cleared for new planting. The legal proceedings took months. I testified twice. Sitting in a courtroom and detailing my son's betrayal to strangers, Daniel wouldn't look at me. Brittany glared. I kept my eyes on the prosecutor and told the truth. Daniel got 8 years. Brittany got 12. Torino got 25 to life. After the sentencing, Daniel's lawyer approached me. "He'd like to speak with you." "No." "He wants to apologize." "No." "Some bridges. Once burned. Couldn't be rebuilt. Some wounds cut too deep for forgiveness. Maybe someday I'd feel differently, but not today." I returned to my house, free and clear, no threats hanging over it. The roses had grown back, fuller than before. The security cameras remained, but I rarely checked them now. The locks had been changed again, this time to smart locks only I could control. Evelyn helped me redecorate, removing every trace of their brief occupation. New paint in the guest room, new furniture in the living room. Fresh energy throughout. It was my house now, truly mine, earned not just with money, but with courage I didn't know I possessed. The church ladies treated me like a hero. The newspaper did a follow-up story. Neighbors waved when I worked in my garden, but I didn't feel heroic. I felt tired and free. One evening, as spring settled over Colorado, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea. The roses bloomed magnificently, their scent carrying on the warm breeze. I'd planted new varieties, courage, triumph, and resilience. The names felt appropriate. My phone rang. Unknown number once. That would have sent my heart racing. Now I simply declined the call. I'd learned to protect my peace as fiercely as I'd protected my home. The house was quiet these days. No drama, no demands. No one telling me it was too much for an old woman to handle. Just me, my garden, and the life I'd built. Some might say it was lonely, but loneliness was better than betrayal. Solitude was better than toxicity. I thought about Daniel sometimes. Wondered if prison would teach him what 40 years of mothering couldn't. Probably not. People had to want to change. And Daniel had always preferred the easy path, even when it led to ruin. But that wasn't my burden anymore. I'd carried him as far as any mother could, further than I should have. Now he had to carry himself. As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I raised my teacup in a silent toast to survival, to strength, to knowing when to let go. They'd thought I was just a weak old woman who'd crumble under pressure. They'd thought my love for my son would make me an easy mark. They'd thought wrong. I was Margaret Lawson. I'd taught 3rd grade for 4 decades, raised a child alone after my husband died, saved every penny to buy my dream. I'd survived betrayal by blood, threats from criminals, and attempts to steal everything I'd worked for. And I was still here, still standing, still growing roses in my garden. They'd wanted my house, but they'd taught me something invaluable. I was stronger than I ever imagined, and that strength, that was something no one could ever take away. The house on Maple Grove Lane stood solid and secure, shelter and symbol both, not just of dreams achieved, but of battles won, of a grandmother who'd refused to be a victim. Home? Finally, truly, irrevocably home. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let me know your thoughts. What would you have done in my situation? Your stories and experiences matter too, and I'd be honored to hear them.